I took the number I wanted to produce and I broke it down to the number of applications that I had to take per day. And then I had to take into consideration what habits I had to create in order to generate that business, what I had to do for marketing, where I had to show up, what my energy level needed to be like, how much I needed to sleep. And then that became my obsession.
Welcome to the Raquel Show. There's so many people that come into your life for a reason, and my guest today is one of those people. She's one of the few women in my life that continues to inspire me, not only in business, but as a mother. She challenges me to think bigger, and to keep playing bigger, and she's done this for over a decade. For as long as I've known her, she has always had big goals, and every year she continues to raise the bar, and average is definitely not in her vocabulary. And I couldn't be any more excited to interview this powerhouse woman today, Padi Goodspeed. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Raquel. I'm excited. What most people probably don't know is that I stalked Raquel for a very long time until I actually got her attention. So she's the big deal here. We can get into that later.
No. So I'm so excited because I cannot wait for you guys to all get to know this wonderful woman. And we're just going to kick it off and get started right away of who is Padi Goodspeed and what has inspired you to do what you do today?
It's always difficult for me to really talk about myself because I never see myself as a huge deal. I just see myself as a woman who's really, really clear on exactly what I want. And at this stage of my life, when I reflect, that's really been the constant theme. I think knowing exactly what I wanted and making that vision clearer and clearer has helped me reach every goal that I've set for myself thus far. In the business world, and I have a lot of other personal goals. But who I am, I'm a mother, first and foremost. Of course, I have two beautiful daughters, 14 and 11, that I've raised by myself for almost 14 years now. And I've been a mortgage banker for almost 20 years. I mean, I started not knowing at all what I've done, but what I was doing, I didn't even know what a mortgage was when I started. So the first 5 years don't really count. But I've been around for a long time. And there are many facets to who I am. I'm a believer. I'm a lover. One of my favorite things to do is to, watch a sunset and write some poetry or, quote Jay-Z lyrics. These are the things that make up who I am. Yeah. So that's who I am.
Like I said, she is a powerhouse. And not only that, she also is an amazing cook. If you ever follow her on Instagram, I don't know how she does it all. And the other day I read a stat, right, where it's only 2% of women ever hit 7 figures. And you've been able to not only build a successful business, but also be a mom and raise 2 beautiful, beautiful young girls all by yourself. How do you do that?
With a lot of tears. So, being a single mom, and I hate even calling myself that, but I started, when I introduce myself in smaller settings in a group, I say, I'm literally every stereotype you could ever imagine. I got married too early. I got divorced by the time I was 30. I have 2 children I've raised on my own. Every single little statistic that you can think of that presents a hardship for women. Just being a woman in the business world, just having to stop, to pause, to prioritize whether or not you want to have children, how you balance a relationship, how you cater to your husband or your significant other. And just all those things present hardships for women and how we prioritize our day. So imagine all the other obstacles that were thrown in my way by having to raise the girls by myself. And also being a daughter of immigrants. My parents don't have an empire that's built here in the United States. My parents came here with nothing. My parents were educated and still came here and had to start by being dishwashers and ice cream truck drivers and those type of things to be able to put a roof over our head. There were 2 things that were very important to my parents. One was education and the other was ownership, home ownership. I remember that my dad was really always focused on that. And he came to this country. He lived in an apartment in Oakland with one suitcase with all of his belongings in it. And he said because of the amount of people that lived in that 1 2 bedroom apartment, he had to take that suitcase with him every time he went grocery shopping. So this is what I come from. And so when you have this mentality that's embedded in your blood, in your DNA, that you're here to survive, that this opportunity to grow in a country that gives you many, many opportunities, you just kind of grasp that and you go. And although I'm a first generation Iranian in the United States, I was born and raised here, born and raised in the Bay Area. My focus has always been to create a legacy for my family. I wanted to make my parents proud. I wanted to make sure that there was something that we built here that would last for multiple generations. And so when you have the mindset and it's so deeply convicted in you, everything that comes your way you don't view it as an excuse. There's nothing that has happened to me. And if I got deeper into the things that I've dealt with on a personal level, I think it would shock some people, but there's nothing that has ever happened to me that made me sit down and say, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I have moments, but that moment has never lasted so long to where I've been knocked off my feet. So I keep going. So how do I do it? When we were coaching, Raquel, you were talking to me a lot about delegation, having a chef and having a nanny and having those things. I still don't have those things because it's one thing to have to manage multiple people. And I still haven't gotten to that point yet. But what I have done is taught my daughters how to be very independent. They know who their mom is, and I don't compromise. There's something that when you become a single mom, that you give up for because you have children, you want those children to be successful. And some women give up everything they've ever dreamed of for the sake of motherhood. And I haven't done that. I said, this is who I am. I've learned with time that this is who I am. I'm a woman that is very convicted about certain levels of success that I want to accomplish, not because of the money, not because of the bags, not because of the look, but because I know I'm capable of it. If there's something that's inside of you that you know that you're capable of and denying it, that's depression. That's unhappiness. That's what I refused. And my daughters understand that, even though they're really, really young. They know that there's something that I'm here to create so that when they're my age, they don't have to carry their parents the way I had to carry my parents or the way that many of us carry our parents, right? So they understand that there's a mission. And so I don't often compromise that mission for all of the little things. So I'm okay with missing, cheer practice. I'm okay with not being at every Taekwondo event. I'm okay with little things, missing things here and there. And I don't beat myself up about it because I don't have a choice. I have to be, in 6 places at once. So I choose the most important place where my highest and best use can be applied. And then I balance the rest. Now, with that said, because I know that might come with some backlash, I spend a lot of quality time with my daughters. I'm very close to each of them. They're very active. They do excellent in school. They have all the resources they need, and their lives are filled with extracurriculars. So they've just learned to manage their own time, to take care of their homework, to handle their business because they have to. I can't micromanage them. And of course, I'm taking the phone away if the grades slip.
Oh my gosh, there is so much in that I just want to unpack because that was like a mic drop moment. If you guys, I'm sure some of the people are gonna rewind and go, what exactly did she say? Holy cow, that was a mic drop moment. And you hit on something that I think it's not talked about a lot is not only have you built this successful empire, but the thought of this mom guilt. Has it always, and you said, you've raised your daughters to be independent. Mm-hmm. How did you get there? Or for those that are I'm not quite there, what advice would you give to them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. So I remember when I first became a mom, I was in love with the idea of being a mom. I love my baby so much. And I read this book by Dr. Sears. And Dr. Sears gave me permission to let my children sleep in my bed with me because they would feel more secure. So I had this notion in my mind that if I let my baby sleep in the bed with me, that they would be more confident with time. And I feel like it worked. I always think about that, right? So I always think about the mindset that I had to give them so much of my love and attention when I was sleeping with them, that they always felt secure and they always felt loved at home. And so that to me helped me build a foundation with the girls. And then there was this other thing that I learned from Dr. Sears, which was I built this star chart for the potty training. Both of my daughters were potty trained at 2 on the dot. And I always talk about that with a lot of pride because some moms are lazy with that, because the kid is ready. The kid is ready, but the mom doesn't want to put up with it, right? So I remember that star chart and I always think about it. There's a lot of things I don't remember, but that's one I remember because it was the way that you positively reinforce any behavior that makes these children do exactly what you want them to do. So I don't have the mindset of this is the way I've learned it and this is the way it has to be for you. What I tell them is I always teach them that these are the 2 options that you have. And if you choose this one, this will come as a result of it. If you choose that one, this will come as a result of it. I often paint the picture for my children that if they make certain choices in life and they end up in one direction versus the other, they won't be able to afford the lifestyle that they currently live. That lifestyle can be as simple as being able to go to Starbucks on a daily basis, or being able to go to the movies with your friends, or 14-year-olds today that have this obsession with sushi. Like, who do you think you are, right? So even just these little things, I'm not talking about extravagant shopping trips or lavish vacations. I'm talking about the basic needs that they have every single day, the desires that they have on a weekly basis that they indulge in that would be absolutely impossible. I literally showed my daughters the difference between a gross and net salary for various different professions. And then I showed them what our household expenses were. So I wanted them to clearly understand that if you cannot do these things, if you do not do these things, right? Mm-hmm. So these are the things that I teach them. And then really, honestly, I think one of the most powerful things we have today as parents is taking that phone away. Man, they are obsessed with those phones. So that's another powerful tool. I think it's positive reinforcement, teaching them, but vividly painting the picture. Oh, there's another really important thing I learned from Dr. Sears is that don't do baby talk, right? Mm-hmm. So you're not like, oh, my baby, right? I talked to them in full sentences since they were newborns, right? Like they knew what I wanted to say. I conveyed it very clearly. Mainly was, of course, love. And then, of course, with time, I've learned I talk to my daughters very clearly and very directly. So my oldest daughter will say, sometimes I don't know which mom I'm getting. Am I getting assertive mom? Am I getting funny mom? Am I getting business mom? They know the differences, but I speak to them very clearly. So they know what I'm saying. They know where I will not cross the line. And of course, they know how to milk me when they need to as well.
I love that you teach them, number one, about expenses and about finances, because there's very few people that actually talk about money with their kids. And it's the reason why we build these like crazy empires and we build this legacy. And then the stats show that like within a generation or two, it's gone. Right. And so I love that, like you've taught them at a really young age, like exposure to at least money and managing money and lifestyle like this is, and hard work, right? Because sometimes people think it's really easy from what they see or, on their phones or on social media that like tomorrow you could be a millionaire because you did XYZ and you were an influencer.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you're not going to be Bronny James' wife sitting at home, doing nothing. So like, relax. You need to go to school and read that book, girl.
I love how like unapologetic you are. And you say things with so much conviction. And you mentioned like you had like these like this vision and this big goal. And I remember when we were coaching like 2 years ago during the pandemic, there was very few people in this industry, in our industries, that basically hit that 100 million mark. And last year you were like almost doubled that.
Yes.
Right. Where does that grit come from? Where does that motivation come from? Where does like your tenacity and your resilience like come from? Because there's very few people that I meet that have that.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. And I'm starting to feel really grateful that I get to be in that group of people. And here's why. I was looking at my very first top producer award, and my annual production was just over 12 million. That was my very first top producer award that I ever received very long time ago. And I remember the day that I went to an event. It was a Haute real estate event in Beverly Hills, and there was a panel of speakers, and the panel was called the $100 million producers. This was the first time in my adult life that I had ever even seen that number in that capacity. And I didn't even understand what that meant. So I went to the panel, I sat down, I wanted to learn, I wanted to network with people, and I listened to this panel speaking. They were all very much older than me, very established people, mainly white male. And they were all in the Southern California, Beverly Hills, and Newport Beach market. I later realized what $100 million means to them is much different than how I'm going to produce $100 million in the lending world. So when I first went to real estate school, the teacher of that course taught me, he said, realtors will make more money per transaction, but lenders will do more transactions. And they also don't necessarily have to work on the weekends. And I thought, that sounds more appealing. Let me go that route. And that's always been at the forefront of my mind. I always share that with people because it matters. You have to what most of us call reverse engineer it. So once I had this idea of where I wanted to fit into the real estate industry, and then later in my career, I had this idea of I want to become $100 million producer. The very first thought is, okay, I believe that I can, right? I believe that I am capable because nobody that I'm looking at looks like me. None of them have their life in shambles like I do. None of them are raising kids alone like I am. None of them have all of this weight and baggage to carry every day. So when you get up on a normal basis and you're putting yourself in the mind state for your day, you're like, okay, cool. I'm drinking my coffee. I'm doing my mind. No, I've already have a full-time day before my work day even started. So what I did was I took the number I wanted to produce and I broke it down to the number of applications that I had to take per day. And then I had to take into consideration what habits I had to create in order to generate that business, what I had to do for marketing, where I had to show up, what my energy level needed to be like, how much I needed to sleep. And then that became my obsession. And then when you first start generating that business and you start to bring in the numbers, that's one thing. Then you have to sharpen your conversion. Then once you scale, you think you're this great mom and pop shop. Everyone loves you. Customer service is 5 stars. Wait until you start scaling and shit hits the fan. You can no longer service that level of clientele with the same amount of, the high level, high touch service. So then you learn that lesson. And the thing is that there was a moment in 2015 where I moved me and my daughters into an apartment by ourselves to take this opportunity with the real estate office. And I moved, 3 hours away. I was like, I'm going to do this. This is going to take me to that next level. And when I was sitting, that all blew up because we were doing so well that we went from, let's say, 5 applications a day to 30 applications a day. And what happened? Everything fell apart. It completely combusted because we didn't have the system and the capacity to take that. That alone, from an ego perspective, would have crushed anybody. But I continued to show up and I continued to come at. That tenacity comes from, it goes right back to what's inside of you. I know what I'm capable of, and I'm very, very clear on the goal, and nothing is going to stop me from taking the next step. It's all about the mindset. We talk about that, and it seems like this cliche topic, but people who wake up with any sort of hardship on a daily basis understand that if you don't know how to shift the focus within your mind, you're not getting through that day. It doesn't matter what's happening. So that's really kind of where it comes from. I tap into that. And then being able to accomplish those goals, when you have the numbers and you know what you need to do daily, you hear this all the time. People who are successful, they show up even when they don't want to, whether it's the gym or their business or their home life, they show up even when they don't want to, right? So I don't want to show up 90% of the time, but I get up and I do it. And because I've broken it down to such a daily task, and I know exactly what I need to accomplish on a daily basis, I'm never going to be too far off my goal. So then again, you have things that break, you have system issues that you have to fine tune, and then you just continue to fine tune that. And all of a sudden, the compounding effect of your efforts turn into, holy shit, I just broke 100 million. And then followed that up with 182 million the following year. So all of that is simply from having the like you said, the tenacity, this relentless resilience. It's like nothing can just knock me out and keep me down and then keep going. Because, I guess they say it goes back to your why as well. They often ask us, what is your why? What is your why? For years, I've been thinking about it. And when I look at my children and I think about what I've had to go through to be able to put this roof over their head, to be able to put this food on their plate, and what I've had to do to get to that point, I know I have this peace that when my daughter is my age, she won't even know that struggle. She will not know what it meant and what I had to sacrifice and how hard I had to work and how much I didn't sleep and those feelings. She won't know that. What she'll know is that she's going to have this loving career, Lord willing. And she's going to be able to take a month off that's paid vacation, and she gets to travel and she gets to live this life with peace of mind. I would give anything for that peace of mind. So I would give anything for my daughter to have that peace of mind, for both of them. So that thought keeps me going. And the numbers make it so clear to where even when you don't want to show up, when they say, oh, when you don't feel like showing up, you still have to show up. That is hard to do unless you know exactly what you have to do, right? So if you don't want to go work out at the gym, but you show up anyway, and you know exactly what exercises you have to do, then you just knock them out and leave. If you walked into the gym, even though you didn't want to be there, but you didn't have a plan, or you didn't have a workout, or you didn't have a machine, what are you going to do? You're going to look at the walls and you're going to leave. So having the plan and knowing exactly what I need to do, and then holding yourself accountable to getting it done on a daily basis, those are the moments. It's the small victories. It's not the $100 million production. It's not the $50,000 check. That shit doesn't matter. What matters is that feeling of confidence that you feel when you showed up when you didn't want to. That's the victory, because that's what's going to keep you going. It's not the destination. It's the journey, right? It's the process. So.
Oh my gosh, I absolutely love it. And first of all, I love everything of what you said, right? I resonated. And this is why I'm like, this woman is resilient. She has the tenacity, she has the grit, and she has such a deep why. And they always say that like your why should make you cry. Like you just talking about your daughters and like that peace of mind. I was like almost tearing up, for those that are like listening and hearing us right now. So last year, let's talk about that a little bit more, because there's you still got to show up even when you don't want to.
Yeah.
And last year you had one of your best years in your career or in your business. And you also dealt with some loss, because we got to spend some time in Turks and something had happened before that. So I wanted to just really quickly like talk about that, because I think it can help a lot of people that may be feeling stuck or that may be dealing with, things that aren't going their way.
Yeah, definitely. So I lost my father on July 1st. It was exactly July 1st. And I woke up in the morning to my mom screaming his name. They live with me. They live downstairs, and my mom was screaming his name, and she was trying to open the bathroom door. And so I ran downstairs and I tried to open the bathroom door, and he had passed in the middle of the night in the bathroom, and he was locked behind the door. And we had to call, the ambulance, and they came quickly, and it was really traumatic. So it was traumatic because I still can feel the way my hands felt pushed against the door. And I lived with him. I saw him every day. So I would be upstairs in my home office working because of COVID, and he'd be downstairs, and he would do things like, be on customer service with Apple for like 3 hours talking about how to delete a text message, or he'd be playing his music, and I would text him from upstairs, like, can you keep it down? But what I loved about having him there was, because I love to cook, because that's my stress relief, he always looked forward to eating my food. He always looked forward to interacting with me. And like, I would come downstairs, like, what are you going to cook? And he would be excited. And that was our moment. That was our connection. And when I first had my daughter, and I was married, but my marriage didn't work out. But when I first had my daughter and I was separated from my husband, my dad bought every single diaper and every single pack of formula that my daughter ever ate. And we always talk about that. And we always, he wasn't, he traveled a lot when I was younger. He wasn't always there, but when later in life, he really tried to make up for that. And I constantly thought about those moments. And sorry, I'm drifting a little bit, but it was, so it was traumatic. It was traumatic to spend this amount of time with someone over the past decade on a daily basis, to be so close to someone on a daily basis, to have them in your home, to have them, in your everyday interactions. I was his caretaker. He leaned on me for things. And I spent a lot of time with him at home. So his absence still hurts a lot. It's loud. His absence is really loud. So coming down the stairs and trying to push the door open and having him be in there and not, and then having him come out in that way was really traumatic. And I think that for a few days I was really numb. And I had recently, just maybe about 3 weeks prior, had finally had this couch and chair delivered. He wanted a chair. So I bought a couch with a chair instead of this larger sectional we had. And I sat in his chair. I would just sit in the chair that I bought him, like day after day after day, to just kind of grasp what had happened. And soon after that was our trip to Turks and Caicos that you had invited me on for your mastermind, which is brilliant. And I thought about it, and I had this wonderful excuse to not come. And I always can make excuses to not show up to something that I know would be good for my soul, or that I know would be good for my business, or good for myself in any capacity. And when I thought about it, I thought, whether I go or don't go to Turks and Caicos, nothing is going to change what just happened or what I went through. But being able to take myself out of the country and go spend time with some women that care about me, that have created a beautiful space, that are successful, that are inspiring, that are beautiful, would add value, would make me feel better. And also important to note that for my dad, right after Turks and Caicos, we had a family trip planned to Hawaii. I knew it was going to be his last trip. I didn't even get a refund on his ticket. I didn't even want to do it. I couldn't do it. And so he never made it to that trip, but I knew it was going to be our last family trip. So I had a lot to process and a lot to unpack. And I chose not to pass up on the opportunity to come to Turks and Caicos to be with you, because I knew that nothing that I did or didn't do from that point would change what had happened. And I had to start really just asking myself, how am I going to deal with this? Because when you're dealing with loss, it's different. There's many, many hardships, but when a parent dies, there's a piece of you that just is missing. There's an emptiness. It's too final. It's too final, right? It's like, oh, I've known you my entire life, and now you no longer exist in this physical realm. And that takes some time to grasp mentally, no matter how well versed you are spiritually. I'm here to tell you. Mm-hmm. So that was tough. And again, the decision that I had to make when I traveled to Turks and Caicos with you soon after that was, what will change? There's nothing that you gain in life, and there's no benefit to the person that's passed, and there's no benefit to yourself to sit in a room and cry about it. It doesn't, what's that? So I know many people grieve in many, many different ways. And I'm in the process of grieving, and I feel like there's a lot more that I need to get through when it comes to processing the fact that my father's gone. But sitting down and being idle for me doesn't work. So I was able to take this pain and think about, it was like a highlight reel throughout my life, to think about all the different times that my dad was actually disappointed in me. He was disappointed in the choices I make. He was disappointed in, he didn't necessarily always believe that I was going to be successful in the path that I had taken. Middle Eastern parents want you to be a doctor, lawyer, or an engineer. They don't want you to be an entrepreneur. Okay. So he didn't always believe in everything that I was doing until it started paying off, and he saw how much I was, helping our family. So when he passed, I knew that he was proud of me. I knew that I had done right by him. I knew that I treated him with respect. And I knew that he knew that my mom would be okay because of me. That gave me a lot of peace. So in order to keep that going, I had to keep going. And that was, a very difficult moment. But again, I kept going.
Thank you for sharing that. This is what I love about you, is you're not only this powerhouse woman that everyone sees, right? But you have such a beautiful soul. And I always say she's the girl and the woman that has that unshakable inner strength. And when I have tough days or when I have bad days, it's Padi that inspires me. I think about her. I think about the women in my life that just kept going. Right. And so thank you just for sharing that. And it is tough when you do lose somebody. It is tough, especially when it's a parent. It's tough when you take care of them, right? And how much you see them on a daily basis. And so, I love the fact that you share that. I love the fact that, you still kept going, because there's times where it can paralyze you, and you thought about it and you still kept going. And I'm glad you did, because I wouldn't have shared those special moments with you in Turks had you not come. And so we talked a lot today about like scaling. We talked a lot about, building businesses and mindset and keep going. What's the biggest lesson you would say that you've learned from scaling your business?
The biggest lesson that I've learned from scaling is, wow, there's a few solid ones. One is be kind to yourself
Mhm.
because, I love how people talk about scaling so nonchalantly, right? Scaling literally means that the blood, sweat, and tears that you have put into getting to point A, you now have to triple for point B, quadruple for point C, and quintuple for, D. So it's not easy. Let's get that straight, right? So
Mhm.
scaling is not easy. It's going to cost you more money. It's going to cost you more time until you figure out the importance and the power of training people that are going to be in the right position to carry out the business with your mindset. So how do you find a group of people? Most people can't even figure out how to make a relationship work because they can't get like-minded with someone they live with, right? Right. So how do you
Truth.
find 5, 6 strangers and say, we're going to see this the way I see it. I want you to embrace this the way I do. And I want you to love this success the way I do. And I want you to execute the way I would. Good luck with that, bruh. It's not that easy. Okay. So be kind to yourself so that you understand what attrition means, that you're going to have to be able to. There was a really important phrase, and I think you taught me this, Raquel, which was you train to the system, not the person, right? So there's a
Mhm.
system. We think about that every day on my team. My production manager and I, we always use that phrase because when we've created a system, that system will generate. If I put X, 1+1 is always going to be 2. So if I have this system that I've created and I have people that I'm expecting to conduct business according to this system, then it's really easy to start managing people and understanding whether or not they're fit to carry out the mission, right? Because it's all the formula remains the same. Once you understand the formula and you know what it takes to do 2, then that means you know what it takes to do 4 and 6 and 8 and 10, because all you have to do is add more to what works and take away from what doesn't. So when you understand the formula, all that's left to do is to find the right people, to train them, to treat them well, to pay them well, and to give them the trust and the resources that they need to do their job. For many of us high producers in our line of work, we're not your average entrepreneur that comes up with an idea and then hires someone and calls them the CEO and hires someone and calls them the COO. And then they have the multiple people starting, running, and taking care of all the day-to-day activities. That's not the way the real estate business works, because you are the face of the business. You still have to be involved at some capacity. It's your name and your expertise and your trust that wins the business. So really being able to fully delegate and being able to take yourself and duplicate your processes multiple times is a very, very challenging thing to do. So again, it comes down to whatever the big number is that you're trying to reach. And don't say, I say like, okay, people say be realistic, right? Like when I first thought about 100 million, that shit was not realistic. Okay. So don't be realistic. Don't be realistic.
I
Challenge
don't think
yourself.
anyone that has big goals are realistic and
Yeah.
they can accomplish them.
Yeah. There you go. Do not be realistic. Be an absolute psychopath. Be obsessed. Okay. Sleep who, do what it takes, because it is a really short window of time that you have to put in that sort of activity to be able to enjoy the compounding effects of your effort. So to scale, you have to really, really, really have the mindset of understanding that there are things that will break on your way up. Do not let those things break you. Things will break. Do not let them break you.
Mhm. And scaling is unsexy. right? And sometimes people think like, oh, this new word, scaling, I want to scale my business. But do you know what it really takes? Because what
Yes.
got you here may not always get you to the next level, right?
Mhm.
You learn leadership. Like you said, you learn how to multiply your results through people and leading people with your vision and how much passion you have behind the business doesn't always translate to somebody you hire.
Right. 100%. And there's different personalities. My production manager, she's been with me. We've known each other for 15 plus years. She first came to work with me upstairs in my house. Like we didn't even know what we were doing. And I lost her. I lost her because I felt challenged by her challenging me. So I wasn't ready for the challenge she gave me. So I let her go. And then I spent 3 years calling her once a week, letting her know that I messed up and that she was the right person for my business and that I wanted her back. And because I got her back, we were able to go and scale and get to that next level. So another thing is humility. If you make a mistake and you run from that mistake and you don't face that mistake and you don't go to that person or you don't figure it out, that's an inside problem, right? You have to be able to put your ego aside to say, I'm going to go and solve this problem. I'm going to go face the mistake and I'm going to deal with the punches and I'm going to get through this, because you're going to know that if we're going to war together, that I'm not leaving you, okay? That I'm not going to give up, that I'm going to take the punches and I can keep going, right? That's how you really create a long-term relationship with someone that can manage your business. So as a result of having that, now, mind you, we have opposite personalities. She's always saying, I say, oh, Michelle, you think too much. She goes, you don't think enough, or, I say, this is what I promised. This is what you have to execute. And she'll just look at me like she wants to kill me. But we get it. She's the yin to my yang. And I think it starts with having that one person that really understands you, that understands what the vision is and has opposite strengths that you have. So I'm a very ambitious and big thinker and let's get it done. And I'm an executor. Michelle is very detail oriented. She's, my opposite. So it works really well together in creating the right environment and, helping us execute on a daily basis, because you need to have people that disagree with you. You need to have people that will challenge you. You need to have people that are willing to tell you when you're wrong. If you're surrounded constantly by people that are just fanning your ego, honey, you're not going to get anywhere.
Oh my gosh. I love how leaders take ownership. If you're going to scale and you're going to scale something massive, you've got to take ownership. And you got to be the first one to say, hey, I screwed up. I'm going to take ownership. I must have not communicated it correctly. And you just said that. And you hire to your weakness. A lot of times we want to hire yes people or people that don't challenge us. And I think what you said was absolutely necessary when you want to go to places and levels that you've never been. Right. And so thinking about levels and thinking about like playing bigger, what's one thing that you do to play bigger?
Wow. Well, one thing that I do to play bigger, and I feel like in my world, playing bigger means like it's almost like opening a new portal in my mind and learning new things. And so right now, I have a goal for this year to make my first million with investing in crypto. And I've been, so I've been around that world for quite some time. I got into Bitcoin around $3,000. And I remember having these arguments with my friends because they would sell their Bitcoin. I'm like, what are you doing? We don't sell. We don't. And, so I believed in the concept very early. I understood what the founder, Satoshi Nakamoto, I understood that this was brilliant, that it was revolution, that it meant something different. And so for me, thinking bigger in this world at this time is to understand how our world is about to be disrupted through crypto and how early we still are, despite the fact that Bitcoin has been a thing since 2009, or we're in a situation now where this is still new, right? And this is a concept that so many people are coming around. And I'll give you an example. Today, we're closing escrow on a $4 million property where my client, who makes zero net dollars on his tax returns, put 30% down, liquidating from a crypto wallet worth $15 million.
Wow.
You heard me correctly. You have a $15 million crypto portfolio, you're $0 on your tax returns, and you're buying a $4 million house and you're living extremely comfortably because the interest you earn alone off of your crypto is a six-figure salary. So there are so many things that I've seen over the last 5 to 6 years that lead me to feel very convicted that we should be investing in the crypto space very wisely. We need to do our research. We need to understand what we're doing, what we're getting into. So that's my think bigger moment, because everything that we've known fundamentally when it comes to real estate and finance is going to be challenged and disrupted by this space. And so we need to embrace that. We need to think bigger. We need to think beyond the limitations of our own understanding and everything we've done. I've done this for 20 years and nothing's ever going to change. It's changing. Things are changing. Something very valuable that I learned, that I read recently, that really helped me balance this thought, though, because as we're thinking bigger and as we're challenging ourselves to get into these new spaces and learn these new things, it sometimes feels like if we don't do it, we're going to get left behind, or that this will completely take over and everything as we knew it will be gone. And there are some extreme thoughts that take place with people being fearful of missing out or fearful that their job would be obsolete. The thing is, when something new comes about or a new thought comes about and we embrace it, it enables us to understand how we can expand what we're currently doing. It doesn't necessarily mean it would eliminate or take away from, it adds to it. So that's something that helps me think about how the new world is being formed. We're adding layers to how we communicate. We're adding layers to how we teach, adding layers to how we learn, how we earn, how we invest, and what is possible in the near future. So this is how I think bigger, by embracing something that scares me, by just embracing a concept. Who knew that you can go and take ownership in a piece of real estate with, a coin, or that now that you don't have to sign up and fill out forms to do a refinance to liquidate a piece of real estate. You own it through this blockchain system. And then if you wanted $10,000, boom, you just sold a few coins and now you have $10,000, no application, no underwriter, no appraisal. So if we don't embrace some of these thoughts and some of these concepts and some of these ideas and take the time to educate ourselves on them, then, we might miss out on something great. So my think bigger moment is to embrace the new world, embrace all of these new things that are happening, and to make at least $1 million investing in crypto this year.
Oh my gosh, Padi. The thing that I love the most about you, and even in this interview, is you always expose us to different levels. And for me, especially, it's like when you get exposed to different things, you can't unsee it. Right. And now it's up to us to take action. So I know Padi gave you guys a lot of nuggets today. And I know some of you guys are going to rewind this episode and listen to it multiple times. So I want to thank you, number one, for being on the show, for exposing us to different thoughts, to different things, to how to get through life, through even thinking bigger. I could not have picked anyone else to kick us off, like our first woman powerhouse, to kick us off on the Raquel Show. We appreciate having you. Where can people connect with you?
I am on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I'm everywhere as Padi Goodspeed. That's Padi. Goodspeed, like Godspeed with 2 O's. I always say that. My kids laugh at me. So Padi Goodspeed across social media. Your mortgage girl all over the internet. I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much. And I have lots of more things in the works that I look forward to sharing with you guys on the Instagram.
Thank you so much, Padi. Please connect with her on all those social media platforms. We love having you, and we can't wait to have part 2 on the show.
I look forward to it. Thank you so much, Raquel.